some kind of a split between wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins and the Arizona Cardinals. Initially, they were trying to shop him for a trade to see if there were any interested parties out there that would want to take on Hopkins' services, but the contract probably a little bit too much for people to bring on. So earlier last week, the Cardinals went ahead and decided to release the 3-time All-Pro wide receiver. Turns 31 next week, Michael. I don't know what kind of market is out there for him, but this feels like this was probably the right move for Arizona as they try to move forward with the rebuild.
I'd like to hear your commentary with your client when he released his demands for what he's looking for in the next quarterback. Did you read those, Femi? I mean, I know he said a lot of positive things about your client, Kyler Murray, but he also said he wants to go to a team that's quarterbacks all in, that quarterbacks are all about winning in the team. And you could say, well, that's just, that's just kind of what. No. There's a reason a guy says that. And let's be clear here. There's a lot of political answers that are given. Joel Embiid endorses Doc Rivers. Okay, did he? I don't know. Did he really mean that? I don't know. But publicly, that's what he meant. Do you believe it? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. People say things to the media so that they're not the bad guy. That they don't want to be the bad guy. But you gotta intertwine a little bit in this. I'd love to hear you with your defense. Put your white hair on and defend that.
So let's lay it out here. So Hopkins in the podcast, he was on I Am Athlete with Brandon Marshall and those guys and talking about what he would want in his next team. So here were not demands, but here's what he's looking for. And it's 3 things. Quarterback that loves the game and brings everyone on board with him. A great defense because defense wins championships. Got to have a great D-line is what he said. And then stable management because he says he's been through 4 general managers in his career. Let's go back to that quarterback part because that's the one that we're on the sticking point as it pertains to one Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, the face of the franchise for the Arizona Cardinals, signing that big extension. I think this could, if you wanted to, because we talk about how you can look at it either way. It's the Rorschach test, glass half full, glass half empty. If you wanted to, you could say that this is a shot at Kyler Murray. The way I see it and the way I read it is that this is just what he wants as a almost 31-year-old wide receiver on his next team because he wants to win a championship. So, yes, he may not have a 100% leader for a quarterback in his last destination, but he wants that going forward here. And it doesn't have to be a shot at Kyler Murray. That just he wants to go ahead and win at the end of his career.
Okay. I mean, that's on the surface, I would say, okay. But that they had to put a clause in Kyler Murray's contract to get him to work hard, to get him to study and prepare.
They took it out.
So it went in. There's a reason it went in. And there's a reason he's saying what he's saying, which backs up the reason it went in. Look, this as Occam Razor says, the simplest solution is the easiest one. It's not too hard to connect those dots if you're looking at it honestly, if you're not trying to make excuses for the kid. If you're honestly looking at it. And I'll take this a step further. I think they got rid of Hopkins because they're trying to recreate their culture. I've said this all along. When they traded Hopkins from Houston, everybody, oh, my God, they got nothing for him. There were a lot of people that didn't want to get her into that market. They just didn't trade him there because they had no market. That was the best market they could come up with. And then they went ahead and the Arizona Cardinals paid him, I think they paid him $57 million for 3 years, over 3 years. And what have they gotten out of it? What have they gotten out of it, right? And now they're just letting them go and eating 21. They're going to eat almost $22 million of salary cap debt just to let them go. Now, my next question to you is, they're going to be horrible. We get that.
Yeah.
They're going to have they're probably have a good chance to have the first or second pick in the draft, and they got Houston's pick. Mm-hmm. So, you can keep kidding yourself that Kyler's the greatest. But at some point, people that know what they're seeing on tape and what he does in the locker room, somebody's going to say, look, we could get Caleb Williams, and he's a top 5 leader. He's a top 5 player, and we can get rid of Murray. I think that's where we're headed.
I think that conversation's for sure going to be had. But then I'll also push back and say, the next year quarterback always looks a little bit more attractive when we're not in that draft process. Like a lot of people have a lot of stuff to say about, wait till next year's quarterback class. What if Caleb Williams struggles this season?
But that's a lot of people. That's not people that have expertise on quarterbacks. That's Mel Kiper and Todd McShay you're citing here. That's not people that study quarterbacks in the league. Like if you study Caleb Williams in the league and you watch his game and you understand what it takes to play, what he did last year is pretty damn impressive. And if he fell off 100%. The cliff, it would be shocking. To me, the real fundamental issue is do you want to build a team around a guy who doesn't really endear himself with his teammates? Is that who you want to set your culture with? They're getting rid of Hopkins for a reason. Don't kid yourself. They're getting rid of Hopkins for a reason. They don't want to pay $19 million to somebody who they think will affect their culture. I think by the next time they're going to realize that unless Michael Bidwell steps in and says, no, you can't get rid of him. He's my guy.
But isn't it also getting rid of Hopkins with the timeline of DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, because you have a new general manager, you have a new head coach. This team is pretty far away from winning. He's 31 years old now. This is the only time that you could probably even try to get rid of him, and they even couldn't do that. They had to cut him and take all that money, and they decided not even to make it a June 1 cut. I feel like even if Hopkins was the A-plus character guy, I still think they would have tried to trade him just because
they would have kept him, Femi. They would have kept him. If he's an A-plus character guy, they keep him.
To do what,
keep
though?
Playing. I mean, Femi, you got to stop the NBA notion. Like, teams are trying to win. Like, you got to stop that. Nobody wants to get rid of a good player who's a good guy.
But you
want to build your team around him. If you don't understand anything about team building, you want to build your team around somebody who's a good guy. If we're paying him $19 million and $19 and change, and he's a great kid and he produces, I'm not getting rid of him. Why would I get rid of him? They never got rid of Larry Fitzgerald when they sucked. Why would they get rid of him?
You're not going to win. That's why.
It doesn't matter. Your job is to put the best players on the field that you can that fit your culture. You could say you're never going to win. That's easy. So you get rid of all your good players because you're never going to win? I mean, you're back into the process mentality. You're right. You get sucked right back into it. Oh, let's lose and get draft picks. You are, because you're saying get rid of a culture guy to do – you can't do that. He's not a culture guy. That's why you're getting rid of him.
Yeah, of course. But what I'm saying is that when you have a certain timeline, him at 31 is not going to help you win. He's going to help you build a culture. But if he's a great guy, spread down to everyone else.
No, Femi, because if he's a great guy and he's a character guy, he does help you win. He shows the younger players how to be pros. He shows them how to win, how to be a professional. You can't get rid of that. You're dying for that. You want veteran great players who have that sense to put them in your locker room. That's what you want. Why would I get rid of that? Just because I'm going to have a shitty year? Okay, bring Sam Henke in. Let's let him start fucking drafting. Let's get him start the process here. Like, you got to have people around you that are good players that understand what it takes. If they don't, if they are probably maligning the team, if they're in the group of three, right? There's three groups of people on every team. Group one will do anything. Group two's undecided. Group three are, right? If you're in group three, I'm getting rid of you. If you're in group one, I'm keeping you.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I said that you could sell high on him is because if he was A-plus character, you could probably get a day one, day two pick for him. And I think is valuable for a team that is starting a rebuild and doesn't want to pay that money. That's why I think you could go down that path. I think that's a better
point. I mean, if I could get a 2 number one, if I'm at the Rams and I can get a bunch of picks for Aaron Donald, I got to consider that because he's an asset. I am trading assets for more assets. I'm trading here. Yeah. I get that. But if I can't get anything for him, that tells me I got to get rid of him. But if I could get something, but I couldn't get what I wanted, right? I can't quite get there. I can't, he's worth way more than that. Why would I just give him away? Because there is a value to team building. There's a value to all that.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page. I think we've reached the same page here of what we're doing. But like I'm not saying to just give him away for a ham sandwich if he was an A-plus character guy. No, that's not the deal here. You want to get something of value in return because, like you said, every player has a price. Whether it's Aaron Donald, DeAndre Hopkins, or whoever, every player has a price, and you always have to entertain that stuff. With that said, Hopkins wants to go to these contending teams. Where do you think is the best fit for him to go?
I mean, I think Buffalo, Elliot asked me to put together a list of teams that really didn't, what their offseason is like. And I think, when we grade these off seasons, I think it's a little bit wrong. I think part of being an NFL team is you've got to get your former team better, right? You got to get some of these young players that you currently have on your team to play at a higher level. And so everybody focuses on the new and they don't focus on the old. And if you're Buffalo, you could really use a slot. I mean, Buffalo and Kansas City were engaged in trade conversations. He makes $19.4 million. As I've said on this pod before, once your boy Beckham got that contract, Hopkins is like, well, I'm better than Beckham. How come I got to take less money? So I think that's a sticking point. Now, I don't know what he's going to get. Will Cleveland come in involved? They've got cap room. I mean, everybody wants Philly to put him on there and put him on their team, but I think Philly's too smart to put all that money in a one-year player. That's cap money you're giving to a one-year guy that you can't get back, that you could sign some younger players too. See, cap room and cap assets are as critical as the player. I think in Buffalo's case, you put him inside with Diggs on the outside, and you've got Kincaid, the Dalton Kincaid, the kid they drafted. You got Dawson Knox, and now all of a sudden Gabe Davis is an auxiliary. I think that makes sense. Same thing with Kansas City. He can replace Juju Smith-Schuster. Look, the one thing about Hopkins is he's always covered. I mean, you can say whatever you want about Hopkins. He's always covered. But he's an incredible eye-hand coordination, and he's a great jump ball receiver. And so that's why he makes plays. It isn't because he separates. It's because he's got great ability to push off. He's got, really, if you study Hopkins, balance is what his greatest strength is. His ability to stay in balance and catch the ball.
So what kind of a contract do you think he gets? Like, do you think he ultimately gets that Beckham money, or does he have to take a little bit of a cut?
Well, I mean, Beckham did a 7-year contract that voids to 1. I think he'll get, probably 10 to 12 on a 1-year deal that looks like a 5-year deal. I mean, I'm guessing. Yeah. But right now it's not the time to be a free agent looking for money.
No.
Nobody has any. Nobody wants to pay any money. Everybody's going to the Super Bowl. Everybody's Buzz Lightyears ahead of last year.
That 4th-round wide receiver is going to really pop, so we don't need to go ahead and
He's the best player we have. We couldn't believe he's there.
It's wonderful how these teams talk themselves into these players there. But DeAndre Hopkins now on the open market, presumably going to a contending team. We'll see who he ends up signing with later on this offseason.